Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. In a remote region of the galaxy, far from the bustling worlds of the galactic core, a silent sentinel drifted through the void. The last bastion, humanity's final line of defense, was a colossal space defense platform that hung in the emptiness like a lone fortress on the edge of civilization. Its massive bulk was bristling with weaponry, sensors, and shielding, a testament to the ingenuity and determination of the human race. For years, it had stood as a deterrent, a symbol of Earth's resolve to defend itself against any threat that might emerge from the dark reaches of space. Commander Ethan Caldwell stood on the command deck, his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze fixed on the stars. He was a man in his early 40s, with a lean build and graying hair that spoke of a life spent in service. His sharp blue eyes missed nothing as they scanned the vastness beyond the transparent viewport. He had seen countless simulations, reviewed endless tactical reports, and drilled his crew until they were as finely tuned as the systems they operated. But nothing could fully prepare him for the reality of what was coming. The quiet hum of the ship's systems filled the air, a constant reminder of the machine that supported them all. The crew moved with the practiced precision of seasoned professionals, each one focused on their task. The tension in the room was palpable, an unspoken acknowledgement of the stakes they faced. "Commander," came the voice of Lieutenant Maria Vasquez, his second-in-command. She was a tall woman with a stern demeanor, her dark hair pulled back into a tight bun. She was as disciplined as they came, and Caldwell trusted her implicitly. "We've just received confirmation from long-range sensors. The unidentified fleet is closing in fast. ETA is less than 12 hours. Caldwell nodded, his face a mask of calm despite the gravity of the situation. "Very well, Lieutenant. Alert all stations to prepare for battle. I want full readiness across the board. This is what we've been training for." Vasquez saluted sharply. "Yes, sir. Initiating battle protocols." She turned to relay the orders, and the command deck came alive with activity. Caldwell took a deep breath, his mind already working through the possibilities. The fleet they had detected was unlike anything they had encountered before. The energy signatures were off the charts, indicating ships far more powerful than any of Earth's current forces. It was a force designed for one purpose, destruction. He activated his wrist comm, bringing up a holographic display of the platform schematics. The last bastion was formidable, with multiple layers of shielding, an array of missile batteries, plasma cannons, and a complement of fighter squadrons. But it was also isolated, far from reinforcements, and burdened with the knowledge that failure here meant the end of everything they knew. The minutes ticked by as the crew executed their preparations with military precision. Engineering teams double-checked power grids, ensuring that every ounce of energy could be directed to critical systems when the time came. Pilots suited up in their hangars, their sleek starfighters prepped for launch. Medics readied their stations, knowing that they would soon be dealing with the grim aftermath of combat. "Incoming transmission, Commander," Vasquez reported. "It's on an open channel." Caldwell frowned. "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical, lacking any semblance of warmth or humanity. "Humans of Earth, your resistance is futile. Surrender now, and your annihilation will be swift and merciful. Resist, and you will suffer unimaginable pain before your inevitable destruction." A murmur ran through the crew, but Caldwell silenced it with a raised hand. "This is Commander Ethan Caldwell of the Last Bastion. We do not recognize your authority, nor do we bow to threats. If you seek to harm Earth, you will have to go through us first." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Caldwell turned to Vasquez. "They're trying to intimidate us. They know we're the last thing standing between them and Earth." "Do you think it will work, sir?" Vasquez asked, her voice steady but tinged with the weight of the moment. "Not on this crew," Caldwell replied with a hint of a smile. "We've trained too hard, sacrificed too much. They won't break us." As the hours passed, the tension aboard the last bastion mounted. The alien fleet's approach was relentless, a dark wave sweeping across the starry void. The first glimpse of the enemy ships on the sensors sent a chill through the crew. These were not the sleek, angular designs of human vessels, but hulking behemoths of alien technology, bristling with weapons and covered in strange, shifting patterns that defied easy comprehension. Caldwell studied the display intently. The fleet was massive, far larger than anticipated. Hundreds of ships, from nimble fighters to gargantuan dreadnoughts, moved in perfect formation, each one a piece of a vast and deadly puzzle. The alien fleet had clearly been designed with one purpose in mind: total annihilation. "All stations, report status," Caldwell ordered, his voice calm but firm. "Engineering is green across the board," came the reply from Chief Engineer Helen Morris. She was a small woman with a sharp mind, the kind who could see the solution to a problem before anyone else even realized it existed. "Reactors are running at full capacity, and all systems are operating within optimal parameters." "Weapon systems ready," reported Lieutenant Commander Alex Chen, the weapons officer. His voice was steady, betraying none of the nerves he might have felt. "Missile batteries and plasma cannons are primed. We're locked and loaded. Fighter squadrons are ready for launch," came the voice of Captain James Drake, the head of the Starfighter wing. "All pilots are in their birds and standing by for orders." Caldwell nodded, feeling a surge of pride in his crew. "Good. Everyone stay sharp. This isn't going to be easy, but we are humanity's last line of defense. We will hold." The first wave of alien fighters broke off from the main fleet and streaked toward the last bastion like a swarm of angry hornets. The platform's point defense turrets whirred to life, unleashing a barrage of laser fire that lit up the darkness. Explosions blossomed in the void as enemy fighters were torn apart, but there were too many to stop them all. "Incoming," someone shouted as the first salvo of alien missiles slammed into the platform's shields. The energy barriers flared brightly, absorbing the impact, but the force of the explosion sent a shudder through the entire structure. "Shields holding, but we've got another wave incoming," Chen reported, his hands flying over the controls as he directed the platform's weapons to intercept the next barrage. Caldwell watched the tactical display, his mind racing. The aliens were probing their defenses, testing the platform's capabilities. He knew they were just getting started. "Lieutenant Vasquez, coordinate with Captain Drake. I want our fighters to intercept the next wave before they get within missile range. We'll soften them up with our cannons, but I don't want them getting too close." "Yes, sir," Vasquez responded, quickly relaying the orders. Drake's voice crackled over the comms. "You heard the commander, boys and girls. Let's get out there and show these bastards what we're made of. Launch on my mark, 3, 2, 1, go." The hangar doors slid open, and the starfighters shot out into the void, their engines flaring brightly against the blackness. They formed up into tight formations, weaving through the barrage of enemy fire with the practiced ease of veteran pilots. "Engaging the enemy," Drake reported as the two forces clashed in a furious dogfight. Laser blasts and missile trails crisscrossed the battlefield, as human and alien pilots maneuvered desperately for the advantage. The alien ships were fast and agile, but the human pilots were tenacious, fighting with everything they had to protect their home. On the platform, Caldwell continued to direct the battle, his mind working through 100 different scenarios at once. The alien fleet was advancing steadily, but he could see patterns in their movements, hints of their strategy. They were trying to wear them down, using their superior numbers to force mistakes, to find a crack in their defenses. "Commander," Vasquez called out, her voice tense. "We're picking up a massive energy spike from the alien flagship. It looks like they're powering up a weapon of some kind." "Get me a visual," Caldwell ordered. The display shifted to show the alien flagship, a hulking monstrosity of metal and energy, with strange, pulsating lights running along its surface. As they watched, a massive cannon on the front of the ship began to glow with an ominous red light, growing brighter by the second. "That thing is going to hit us like a freight train," Chen muttered, his eyes wide with alarm. "We can't take a direct hit from that." Caldwell's mind raced. They had to do something, and fast. "Divert all available power to the forward shields," he ordered. "And prepare to fire the main cannon. We're going to give them a taste of their own medicine." Vasquez and Chen worked quickly, rerouting power from non-essential systems to reinforce the shields. Meanwhile, the main cannon, a massive plasma accelerator, began to charge, its barrel glowing with an intense blue light. "Ready to fire on your command," Chen reported. Caldwell watched as the alien weapon reached its peak, the red light shining like a beacon of death. He waited for the right moment, every muscle in his body tensed with anticipation. "Now," he shouted. The last bastion's main cannon unleashed its fury, a brilliant beam of blue plasma that shot across the void and slammed into the alien flagship just as it fired its own weapon. The two beams met in the middle, creating a blinding explosion of light and energy that shook the platform to its core. For a moment, everything was chaos. The lights flickered, and the entire platform groaned under the strain. But as the light faded, they saw that their shot had hit its mark. The alien flagship was heavily damaged, its weapon silenced, and its advance halted. "Direct hit," Vasquez reported, a note of triumph in her voice. "They're pulling back." Caldwell allowed himself a brief moment of relief. They had won this round, but the battle was far from over. The alien fleet was regrouping, and he knew they would come back stronger than ever. "Status report," he ordered. "Shields are down to 50%, but holding," Chen replied. "We've taken some damage to the outer hull, but nothing critical. We're still in the fight." "Good. Let's not waste this opportunity. Start a coordinated counterattack. Target their support ships. If we can cripple their logistics, we might just have a chance." The battle raged on for hours, a brutal contest of attrition. The alien fleet pressed their attack with relentless ferocity, but the last bastion held its ground. The platform's defenses were stretched to the limit, but Caldwell and his team fought with everything they had, refusing to give an inch. As the hours passed, the crew's exhaustion began to show. The constant strain of battle took its toll, and they all knew they were fighting on borrowed time. But there was no other option. The survival of Earth depended on them. In the engineering bay, Chief Engineer Morris worked tirelessly to keep the platform systems operational. She moved between consoles, making adjustments, rerouting power, and fixing damage as it occurred. Her hands were steady, her mind focused, but she couldn't shake the growing sense of dread. "Chief, we've got a breach in the coolant system for the main reactor," one of her assistants reported. "If we don't fix it, we could be looking at a meltdown." Morris cursed under her breath. "Send a team to seal it off," and reroute the coolant flow through the secondary system. We can't afford a meltdown right now. The team moved quickly, but the damage was extensive. Morris knew they were running out of options. If the reactor went down, the entire platform would be defenseless. Back on the command deck, Caldwell watched as the battle continued to escalate. The alien fleet was throwing everything they had at the last bastion, and the platform was beginning to show the strain. The shields were fluctuating, the weapon systems were overheating, and the crew was exhausted. "Commander, we're picking up another energy spike from the alien flagship," Vasquez reported. "It looks like they're preparing to fire that weapon again." Caldwell felt a knot tighten in his stomach. They had barely survived the first shot. A second one could be catastrophic. "Prepare to fire the main cannon again," he ordered. "But this time, I want all power diverted to the shields. We have to survive this." The platform systems groaned as power was rerouted. The main cannon charged once more, its barrel glowing with a fierce blue light. But Caldwell knew that this time, they were at their limits. If the shot didn't connect, if the shields failed, it would all be over. "Fire!" he shouted. The cannon fired, sending another beam of plasma hurtling toward the alien flagship. But this time, the aliens were ready. They fired their own weapon a split second later, and the two beams collided in the void, creating another blinding explosion, but this time, the explosion was too much. The last bastion's shields buckled under the strain, and the shock wave tore through the platform, sending crew members flying and systems sparking. "We've lost shields," Chen shouted, his voice filled with panic. "Hull breaches on multiple decks." Caldwell gripped the edge of the console, his mind racing. They were out of time, out of options. But he refused to give up. "All hands, brace for impact." The alien weapon struck the platform, a devastating blast that tore through the hull and sent chunks of debris spinning into space. The lights flickered, and alarms blared as the platform shook violently, but the last bastion held, barely. Caldwell staggered to his feet, his ears ringing and his vision blurred. He could feel the blood trickling down the side of his face, but he pushed the pain aside. "Status report," he demanded. We're still here," Vasquez gasped, pulling herself up from the floor. "But the platform is heavily damaged. Hull integrity is compromised, and we've lost most of our weapon systems." Caldwell looked at the tactical display. The alien fleet was closing in for the kill, their ships swarming around the crippled platform like vultures. He knew they couldn't take another hit like that. "Is the main cannon still operational?" he asked, his voice grim. Chen checked the systems, his hands shaking. "Yes, but it's barely holding together. One more shot, and it might tear the whole platform apart." Caldwell nodded slowly. "Then we'll make it count. Target their flagship. This ends now." The crew worked quickly, despite their injuries and exhaustion. They knew this was their last chance. The main cannon charged once more, its blue glow flickering as the platform strained to maintain power. "Fire on my command," Caldwell ordered, his voice steadied despite the chaos around him. The alien fleet closed in, their weapons trained on the last bastion. Caldwell could see the end approaching, but he refused to back down. He had made a promise to protect Earth, and he would keep it, no matter the cost. "Fire!" The main cannon fired, the beam of plasma streaking across the void toward the alien flagship. The shot was true, hitting the ship dead center. There was a moment of silence, a brief pause in the chaos, as the alien flagship began to break apart, its structure crumbling under the force of the blast, and then, It exploded, the alien fleet hesitated, their formation faltering as their flagship disintegrated. The explosion sent shockwaves through the fleet, damaging or destroying several ships in the process. Without their command ship, the aliens were thrown into disarray. "They're retreating," Vasquez shouted, her voice filled with disbelief and relief. "They're actually retreating." Caldwell watched as the alien ships began to pull back, their once coordinated assault collapsing into chaos. The last bastion had held, against all odds. They had won, but the victory was bittersweet. The platform was in ruins, its systems barely functional, and the crew was battered and bruised. The cost had been high, too high. Caldwell sank into his chair, the weight of the battle finally catching up with him. He had done his duty, but at what price? The last bastion had fulfilled its purpose, but it was a hollow victory. The galaxy now knew that humanity was not invulnerable. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. As the surviving crew began to assess the damage and tend to the wounded, Caldwell allowed himself a moment to reflect. The last bastion had stood as humanity's final line of defense, and it had held. But he knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more battles, more sacrifices, and the galaxy was now a much more dangerous place. The last bastion had protected Earth, but the future was uncertain. Commander Ethan Caldwell knew that the fight was far from over, and that humanity would need to be ready for whatever came next. The battle had been won, but the war had just begun.